Clear prop.
Tower 73, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final. Clear passenger. 1 Charlie Bravo, makes straight in runway 25, join 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and designated pilot examiner Wally Mulhearn. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I am fantastic as always. Today's guest has type ratings in a Falcon 10, 3,000 plus hours, and 45 plus aircraft. Just added a helicopter pilot certificate to his logbook. He's also the CEO and co-owner of the training company that has taught half of America's pilots at some point. And yes, you've probably seen him teaching on camera. From bush flying to seaplanes to business jets and brand new student pilots, he's obsessed with making aviation simpler, safer, and more fun. Welcome to the show, Barry Knuttila. Thank you for joining us, Barry.
Well, thank you, Bobby and Wally. It's great to be on the show and looking forward to see where the conversation goes.
So Barry and I got to spend a little bit of time at Oshkosh. That's been a few weeks ago now, but we got to hang out. The weather was great where we were that evening, but boy, was the week hot. It was very hot up there. Wally was at Oshkosh, didn't get to participate in our little cocktail hour, but we put this on the calendar, and I really appreciate you joining us. We got all kinds of little things to talk about today. Barry, I think it's always a good starting point to say, how did you get to where you are, right? This is a crazy journey. I'm a tech guy. You have a tech background. Obviously, that works for where you work at King Schools. Give us a little pitch on where you came from, how you got where you are today.
Well, you know, Wally, it's oftentimes you don't end up where you started out heading toward, and that certainly is the case here. I started out in the tech world and doing software development and creating products for Fortune 500 companies and working for very large software development organizations. But I also was a pilot from a young age. My dad was a corporate pilot, and I grew up flying. Grew up in the in the back of 172s, going on family trips and that sort of thing. And I knew that was something that I wanted to be involved with in my life. And I had the opportunity to do that, all throughout recreationally. And at one point in my career, I had the opportunity to start looking for a new job. And that opportunity was a kind of a rough one that presented itself to me when the company that I was working for went under due to some malfeasance at the CEO and CFO level, and publicly traded company that went from being $1 billion a year company one day to on its way to bankruptcy the next. And that was a shocking experience. So I started down the path of looking at other opportunities within that same industry, and I got really close to accepting a position at another large software company, and I just had this nagging feeling in the back of my head that I had to look around and see what there was for aviation. I looked around San Diego where I was living. Found out that John and Martha were in San Diego. I didn't even know it at that point. I'd used some King Schools products on videotapes and loved the product, but I had no idea. So I sent off a message to John and Martha, guessed at their email addresses, and was right, and got a response almost immediately. And 2 days later, I was sitting with a job offer to go to work for King Schools and run their technology and become their CTO. And it was a time that they really needed some help to make that transition to the internet, and the internet in terms of product development and also in terms of marketing and having the technology to do that. So it was very appealing to me, and but it was a different turn in my career than I had expected to be making at that point. Smaller company and what have you, but they tempted me. And they did the worst kind of temptation you could possibly do for a pilot. And they offered to pay for additional certificates and ratings. Oh my God, can you imagine? I get to work and they're going to support me in terms of my flying and my flying career. So I went from being a private pilot with an instrument rating and started going on and got my commercial, my CFI, my double I, my MEI, started to fly the Falcon with John and Martha, and did my type rating in ATP. Later got a Cessna 500 type, and then eventually the helicopter rating as well, which was really a thrill in my life. But you can see that little turn in my career was exactly what I needed, because all those things were fulfilling, but even all those things together haven't been quite as fulfilling as being able to lead King Schools. And after about 10 years in my position as the CTO and then taking over marketing, the president left, who was a wonderful person, but he retired. And I had the opportunity to take over and run the company, bought into the company with John and Martha, and became business partners beyond just an employee. And that has been one of the most rewarding things in my life. It truly has. The way that they run the company, the values, how much they care about the industry that we participate in, has made them the best partners you could imagine, as well as mentors, both in flying and in business. So that's really how I ended up where I am now, was kind of leaving tech behind a little bit in terms of that being the 100% focus. Of course, it's a giant component in what we do at King Schools, but I've brought some other people in to take care of that, where it's growing far beyond me and beyond what I could do personally.
I've had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with John and Martha. There is a unique DNA that they have. I think they are exactly who they are on their tapes. I think they're everything they say they mean, and I think they're extremely humble. What do you think the King Schools DNA is? And why is it so strong? I mean, it's amazing. I'm a small business owner. I want that to transcend my business. What makes that the glue that holds the company together?
Well, there's a number of things that contribute to that. But I would say that one of the most important things, and this is something that John and Martha have always done from back when they were going around the country delivering in-person 2-day ground schools and accelerated ground schools and so on, that kind of started off King Schools. They've always put an emphasis on listening to and responding to customer feedback and letting that help to drive directional priority within the company. And as you say, they're very authentic and very down to earth. They don't want to be fancy in any way at all. They're very humble, and that connects well with folks. We don't put on airs at King Schools. We're right there with you, and that has led into how we develop our videos. It took a little while in training with John and Martha. It wasn't something that I wanted to do necessarily in terms of being on camera as an instructor. But there came a period of time where we realized that we needed to do that transition. We needed to have somebody else come in and start being on camera. And I didn't want it to be somebody who didn't have a long-term commitment to the company and was going to be around for a long time. So I worked with John and Martha, and that gave me some insight into who they are as people and how they want to connect to the student, the customer who's watching our videos. And it's really a matter of, look in the camera, talk to that person as an individual, like you would your best friend that was getting ready to go fly, and you wanted to make sure they had every bit of information that they needed in order to be safe. And that's John and Mark, and that's King Schools. Really, it's part of the DNA. So,
No question. Go ahead, Wally.
I was just going to say that's one of the things that I think differentiates it. There's a whole lot of other things that we could talk about that I think are important about King Schools, but I don't think there's anything more important than the lack of pretentiousness and real caring for the customer.
One thing I think about when I think of King School is that this is kind of a weird thing, but I think of back in the 80s, there must have been a 20 or 30,000 square foot warehouse that housed all these VHS tapes. And now you don't have to worry about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There used to be semi trucks delivering empty tapes in the back door of King Schools and picking up full ones and heading out to the post office. And that was a lot of VHS tapes at that time. And of course at King Schools, we had a giant duplication facility built into the building where people were working 24/7 around the clock, pretty much doing nothing but taking tapes out and putting tapes in. And it was a whole different world at that time.
Oh yeah,
Man, that's
yeah.
crazy.
Uh,
So let's talk a little bit about Barry's path and the King ethos. We've done some of that, but like what does what does the future hold? What does part B hold? Talk about your philosophy. We talked a little bit as we were prepping today, kind of your thought process on the flight training industry as a whole. I mean, no one I don't do anything without checking the internet first on how am I supposed to do this, right? From screwing in a light bulb to getting a light bulb out. Like, what does flight training look like, and what is the industry going to go through in the next decade?
yeah. Well, I can tell you that one of the biggest changes that we've seen in the industry is the evolution of flight schools and what that's meant to our business. And if you look back 10, 15 years ago, the majority, almost 100% of our business was selling direct to consumer. Then we started an agreement with Cessna and became the supplier of the Cessna flight training system for Cessna branded products. But we developed those and won that contract with Cessna primarily because of the things that I had mentioned before. They were looking for something that would be fun and enjoyable. And John and Martha really embraced the simplify, clarify, and make it fun ethos. And they went with small King schools over some pretty large other options that they had. And it turned out to be a great relationship. But really, that used to represent maybe 20, 25% of our business, something like that. The majority of our business was direct to consumer. That has slowly changed over time. And as a company, we've had to put a much bigger focus and really develop a discipline around flight schools and ensuring that flight schools had what they needed in order to do ab initio style training. And that's been a real change, in especially I would say post COVID, as the airline industry has taken off and the pilot demand has increased. I think a lot of folks, yourself included, I'm sure, and other flight schools have recognized that as a big opportunity to take somebody from zero and take them all the way through to a flow through program to the airlines. And so as that has developed and that ab initio style training has developed, it's taken a lot of folks out of the direct to consumer market because the first thing that they do is they show up at a flight school and they flunk down whatever it is, $100,000 or so, and say, all right, take me to the airlines. And it's a little bit different, a different way of doing things than when I was starting out learning to fly, where mostly people manage their own training over time. They got their private, they used independent flight instructors, rented airplanes, did whatever they needed to do in order to get the certificates and the ratings that they needed. There weren't as many opportunities to just plonk down a bunch of money and say, take me all the way through. So that's been a big change in the industry, something that we've recognized. We've developed a discipline around our B2B side of the business, which is what we call our flight school, colleges, universities, that part of our business. Also now maintenance facilities, where we're selling our products directly to the flight school who's using those products all the way through their training. So that's something that I've hosted. I brought on a really great leader who you've actually had on the show in the past, Brian Huff. He was one of the folks that founded the Liberty University affiliate program, where you can study at remotely with Liberty University, get a degree, and fly with a local training provider. And so he developed all that. He really knows the university business well, as well as the flight school business. He's been a chief flight instructor, ran Part 141 schools, and so on. So part of it is bringing the right folks that can manage that business well. We still put a big emphasis on our B2C, business to consumer market, which is mostly fulfilled directly through our website on the web. And but we've seen over time a shift as those folks are starting to study more and more at the flight school. They've come out of the direct to consumer market, and we're ending up now at about half and half in terms of the volume of business between our B2B and B2C side of the business. And we're putting a lot of emphasis on the B2B side in order to support flight schools with integrations to back office products, to integrations with learning management systems at colleges and universities, where they can develop a college curriculum and just pull over lessons for home study and for homework, and be able to see those completed over time. As they complete them in the King School system, they show up in their learning management system at the college or university. So that's where a lot of our development effort is going right now.
Yeah, as a flight school owner, I can tell other ones out there that maybe aren't partners with Cessna or King Schools yet that one of the most powerful tools that I use on a regular basis is talking to a young man or young woman who says they're doing all their homework, but they don't seem to be prepared for the lesson. They don't quite know the maneuvers they're going to work on. And the CFIs are so frustrated that they're not making the progress they need to make because they're coming unprepared. And I say, have you done your homework? Have you done the ground school? And they say, yes. And I said, well, let's look at that together. And I pull up your back end system and show them that they've only completed 1% of phase one. And I'm like, you're not going to solo if you've only completed 1% of phase one. This is what learning how to fly is all about. So the intelligence that it does provide a flight school like United Flight Systems, be able to log in by student, by flight instructors, see progress, know who's putting in the effort, who's struggling, maybe missing every question. You know, the world's a remote device nowadays, right? It's the phone and your software, your flashcard stuff, everything's available to a student if they want to use it, but they have to use it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's an area we're putting a lot of emphasis on, is to provide even better reporting and suggestions to flight schools like your flight school, Bobby. That the flight instructors can very easily get information about the progress and get flags and warnings if the student's not keeping up with their home study at the same level as they are flying. You kind of need to keep those things in sync if you're going to do it efficiently, right? They have to show up with the knowledge that they need, at least for that next lesson, and not be learning it in the air. So, as we know, is one of the worst classrooms. But
I say it all the time. If you didn't do your homework, you're going to come fly. You're not going to fly well, and you're just going to buy my wife another pair of black shoes that she doesn't need. So don't waste your mom and dad's money. Don't waste your money. Do the homework. And I think there's a big disconnect. Everybody thinks it's about the flight time, but it's not. It's about the homework. And
mhm.
so leading to that, what do you think the tools and things are that students of King schools and flight schools will be using in the future? Do you think it'll just be the internet? Do you think it's going to be video? What do you see the future to be as it will be King schools business for sure?
Yeah, and I think it will continue to be video. I think video continues to be one of the best learning methods that you can have. And I think that the way that we've developed the video over time is really effectual in transferring that knowledge and getting it into somebody's head what they need to know. Um, but an interesting thing is when YouTube came along and everybody was starting to learn from YouTube and watching videos there, I was thinking, wow, we really did the right thing. We've got these videos down to, 5-10 minutes per video, which before that, you just had a long running VHS tape and you stopped and started it where you wanted to. And we decided to break it down into bite-sized chunks that you could learn one topic. You could sit down for a half hour, 40 minutes, to learn that topic, take the questions that follow it, and get a really good chunk of knowledge from that. What we're seeing now is that what we thought was a small chunk of knowledge is not small enough. And we're thinking that now, especially with the TikTok and scrolling and things that people do, they're wanting even smaller chunks of knowledge, and that's a little bit of a challenge for us. And I used to think, well, 45 minutes, great. Anybody can kind of pick a half hour, 45 minutes, but now I think we need to start looking at seeing if we can develop products that can deliver a chunk of learning in 5 minutes, in 10 minutes, and be able to fit into the way that people are using their devices these days. So that's one area we're looking at. I think it'll continue to be developed or delivered on the internet as an option, but more and more our customers are using our apps these days in order to take the training. And the apps are very, very convenient. You don't have to be online. You download the lessons to your phone or to your iPad, and you just take them wherever you are. And one of the advantages of downloading them to the device is just that everything is quicker. It's very snappy to take your training on the iPhone or the iPad through the app as opposed to waiting for internet responses. So that's, I think it's going to go more in that direction in smaller chunks of learning.
Yeah, I don't wanna tell on myself, but, it's hard to teach everybody everything as our school's grown and we've continued to commit to Cessna and King schools. Someone asked me recently, "What's the best flashcard app to buy?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You own the best flashcard app to buy, and you don't have to spend any money." They're ready to invest more money. I don't think they understand the ROI, or people don't understand that the best bang for their buck is a online ground school, and yours is by far the best online ground school for all the components that come with it. The companion apps, the flashcard apps. And if I want to take 5 flashcards on aerodynamics, I can tell the app to give me 5 flashcards on aerodynamics. That is very consumable when I'm waiting to go to the dentist or I'm sitting in the car and I'm waiting to go into a meeting. It's so easy to consume the knowledge. They just have to do the work and get that stuff on their phone. So I think it's a it's a tidbit of information. It's an add-on to your stuff that probably doesn't get enough exposure. I'm a little biased, and I would say a King Schools podcast would be very valuable over time, and
Mhm.
happy to help however we can help. But I think that it's a form that is not going away either. That I think will continue to help people get more better at their tasks, whether it's pilots or cooking or whatever. I think podcasts will continue to grow in the future as well.
Well, it's been one of the frustrations that I've had and we've had as a company is really getting out the knowledge that King Schools has great test prep because
Oh
King
my
Schools has
god.
such a strong reputation in terms of the video training side. And we've never wanted to separate out the test prep from the knowledge. We want to make sure that you have the knowledge first and then do the test prep, not try and get the knowledge through test prep. So we've never split them out. But a lot of folks don't seem to know that King Schools has great test prep that includes question review, that you can view questions that you've ever missed. You can view questions that you've marked. You can view questions that you've answered incorrectly more than once. There's a lot of different ways that you can go through our question database. And then the most recent way, as of I think last year sometime, is the flashcards that you mentioned. So we have flashcards, and that's really the topper on your test prep. When you're getting toward the end, you feel like you have things down, and just start flipping through those flashcards. You pretty quickly get a picture of how well you understand the knowledge because you move away from this idea of, well, I got these 3 answer choices. I recognize that one a little bit because I've seen this question before. And the flashcards kind of take it to the next level where you just get the question and you have to formulate the answer in your mind as opposed to selecting one of 3. And I think it's a nice topper at the end of the test prep to make sure you're really ready to go.
And I'll say this as an ex-software guy as well, that the UI, the user interface on that flashcard app is really good. I think y'all did a really good job, and, for it to be a companion on top of what I've already spent or invested in to have the videos and the test prep, it is a nice add-on feature for sure. Cherry on top would be a great way to reference that.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, the future of King Schools, John and Martha are still active, very involved. They're at all the big air shows. They're doing it every day. They're feet on the street still. But what I think if I have one complaint or I've heard one complaint, right, it's still 4 by 3. Like, when are they gonna update? I know you're working hard on updating the videos now and releasing courses in real time. What's the future and kinda what should the student pilot, the instrument pilot, the commercial pilot, what should they be expecting from King Schools in the future?
Well, as far as John and Martha go, they're really enjoying their role as statesmen of aviation. And they spend a lot of time traveling, attending shows, doing personal appearances, giving talks both on aviation as well as aviation business, which they've enjoyed kind of sharing what they have learned over 50 years of King Schools through a book called Lift. and they do talks based out of that book, which are very good and can be inspirational for business owners, especially aviation business owners, but just about any business owner, any entrepreneur. So they're enjoying that role. They still come into the studio every couple of weeks and shoot some lessons. So they still enjoy getting in front of the camera and doing the teaching, which is great. We meet once a week and talk about the business and what's going on, and they give me really good advice on areas that I need a little help on, or I'm seeking another viewpoint. So they're still very engaged in the business. But as we look further out to the future, we want King Schools to be part of aviation far beyond any of us. And I'm getting up there as well in age. I'm not going to do this forever, but I think that the core principles that drive King Schools and have made it successful through the years will persevere. And certainly, we're looking at ways to ensure that happens. And that's kind of part of the business, part of the planning for the future of the business. But as far as what we're going to do, you mentioned 4x3 video. We still do have some 4x3 video, especially in some of our older single subject courses, whether that's practical risk management or some of the courses that have been around for a long time, how to avoid unwanted adventure, that's based on talks by John and Martha. And for the most part, we've labeled those older courses King Classics because they have great information, but we wanted to make sure we set the expectation that this wasn't shot yesterday.
Right.
It still is great. We'd be very reluctant to take it off the market because it shares such wonderful insights with customers. But we want to make sure that people understand that this is King Classic stuff, and it's separate. As far as our core products, they're private pilot, instrument commercial, CFI, all of those have been reshot in their entirety in HD video within the last, I would say, 5 years. Starting with the private, we kind of worked through all the way through. We finished the CFI reshoot beginning of last year. So we've gone through all of those our primary courses and reshot them. And then it's, of course, a lot of work just to keep them up to date, to reshoot new lessons and videos when things change with the ACS or with regulations, so on. And we're always watching out for changes that we need to make to the courses. So that will continue. As far as other areas, we're certainly looking at ways that we can be more productive and generate more content more quickly. And the way that we can generate content is time consuming. The result is wonderful. I think it's a great product, but it does take a while to get it to market because we really believe in using that green screen type of production where the instructor is able to turn around and point at something right behind them, and whether it's an animation or a picture or a video or what have you, and kind of involve the student together with the instructor in that background graphic. And we think that that's very effective. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to put that type of production together, from script writing to graphic development to the table reads to the corrections that are made, and then the editing process and everything that happens afterwards. So we have some ideas about using technology in order to be able to bring some well-developed content to market a little bit quicker in certain areas, and we'll see how that comes out. AI is another area which we think has very strong potential to help us out.
Yeah, I don't know. You probably have done something, but when I was out at King Schools and I got to do a little blip with John in front of the camera. I mean, he hits a light switch when he starts talking and that teleprompter starts rolling. But a little behind the scenes look would probably be interesting to all your customers and potential customers, just to see. It is not a small operation. I think even when we were just doing a practice shoot as part of the Cessna Pilot Center group that was out there, there's 8 people in a room right next to us that are doing a whole lot of work to make sure lighting's right and the position of the people are right, and the green screen is not small. It's a whole freaking room, and cameras, teleprompters, multiple cameras. It is a production. And then just post-producing this podcast is a ton of work. I can't imagine multiple angles, multiple audio channels, multiple people, and somebody sneezes, man, let's start over. Like, that's gonna be one
Oh yeah.
take.
Well, especially with our field shoots these days, when we go out and we fully rig a 172, we've got usually between 6 and 8 cameras that are all running. And that's generating a tremendous amount of video footage that then is brought back and pieced together and cut together in order to get down to a finished product. But all those views, all those options, definitely lengthen out the amount of time necessary in order to do a good job of editing it all together. That's something that we're still working with. We have some, I think, really good people that are able to do that. And one of the keys to it is to have a subject matter expert who's really the producer of a show like that, and they have an idea of what they want to get, a very specific idea when we go out and shoot. And then they work with the editors in order to pull it all together. So really become a producer of that particular segment and have the vision for it to start with, and then do whatever's necessary to bring it to life.
So you just released some stuff around private maneuvers, I believe, and if we put check ride in the name of any podcast, it seems to get downloaded a whole lot more. What are y'all doing or do you do around check rides that maybe people don't know about?
Yeah. Well, you know, Bob, one of the things that I think that we're hearing a lot more about than I remember when I was going through my certificates and ratings back in the day is just a tremendous amount of anxiety around check rides. You know, check ride anxiety, we can label it. And I think that there's good reason for it because so many more or a much higher percentage of the folks that are in training, pilots in training, are doing it with the aspiration to end up at the airlines or in a professional career. And check rides matter more than ever in that process. Partly it has to do with how long it takes to go through all the certificates and ratings. Anytime you have a failure on a check ride, it sets you back. And of course, folks want to be moving and getting through those let's call them milestones as quickly as they can. And it can be very expensive as well to have to go back and redo a check ride. And you have the scheduling, you have the expense of airplane instructor to go back over and retrain. You have the expense of the DPE to go back to, and the airplane and fuel for that. You have the time that it's taken. So the cost, I think, if you have that airline crew in mind, the cost of failing a check ride is very high. And it's something that everybody wants to avoid. And also now with the pilot record database, all that ends up being able to be viewed by the employer at the end of the day. They'll be able to see, you know, how often you have passed or failed check rides through your career. So I think all that has created a lot of anxiety among those when they're showing up for their check ride. And it's something that the King Schools has recognized and developed courses for. So we have check ride courses all the way through from private, instrument, commercial, and CFI, where you can get a vicarious view of the check ride. And John, Martha, or myself will be getting examined by actual DPE, and they'll be going through their plan of action exactly as they would with any candidate. And we try and give a model performance so that the folks that are watching it can have a really good idea about how best to answer a particular question that's asked and how to incorporate the new requirements of the ACSs now in terms of risk management. So how do you weave in elements of risk management into your responses so that the DPE feels like you're meeting that requirement and you're going to be a safe pilot who's able to manage the risks associated with flying. So we've done that in our check ride courses. They tend to be somewhere around 10 to 12 hours worth of video that include both the oral portion and the flight portion of the check ride. And I think that the feedback that we get is that those courses do a great job on alleviating that check ride anxiety. So this part of what generates anxiety is fear of the unknown, right? A lot of, especially on the private level, might be the first check ride, probably is the first check ride that they've taken. And they're really not quite sure what to expect or how to how to answer questions in a way that is to the point and covers the elements of risk management. And that's something we've tried to do. And the feedback has been great. We've talked to some DPs that said clearly that they noticed the difference because they asked the students afterwards, well, how did you prepare for this check ride? Whether they passed or failed it. And when they hear that they've used the King School's check ride course, they're reporting that those students do better and feel better, and they're the ones that makes a DP's day, because no DP in Wally, I'm sure, is exactly this way, wants to fail. You want to have the very best candidate you've ever had every time, and
Absolutely
feel good about that. So yeah, so we try and help out in that.
I've watched a lot of those videos, and the one thing I can say that is, if you haven't seen them or you haven't been a part of them, it's the in and out of role play, right? Like, of course, you're not taking a private check ride, Barry. You've got that knocked off, but you or John or Martha, or I think it's John, doing it in the CFI and it's we're doing this role play, and then he stops and explains the context, or the DPE explains some context. Like, that is really, really good for a potential candidate or applicant to see and understand that's going to be very beneficial. So I highly recommend those check ride courses for sure.
I agree. And I should have mentioned that there's a lot of sidebar discussions in those check ride courses where you take a little break from the actual, running of the check ride and talk about, well, what's the DP really looking for here? What's on your mind? And those discussions tend to really reveal some gems, I would say, in
No
terms
doubt.
that pilots might not have thought of.
I'm still aspiring to get my CFI one day. So I've watched the FOI and the CFI check ride many times just to continue to hone my skills. I'll get the nerve done, and I'll get over my own check ride anxiety one day and take that ride for sure.
Well,
I'm waiting for Wally to get approved, and then when Wally gets approved, maybe I'll do it.
there you go.
I
So-
just finished this year doing the CFI check ride. It's in edit right now. It's the ACS version of the CFI check ride, and it was intense. I have to say, I hadn't done. It'd been, I guess, 10 years or so since I did my actual CFI check ride, so I had to go back and refresh a lot of knowledge. But I was reminded how deep the knowledge required for the CFI check ride is, and how big of a check ride that is. And we're struggling right now on getting about 30 hours of video down to, a reasonable level, maybe 10 hours for the oral before we go shoot the in the air portion.
And 30 hours of video takes 130 hours just to even start recording it, and then 130 hours to record it. It's crazy how much all that puts together. We talked a lot about business and a lot about training. What do you do nowadays, Barry, to wrap up the show? What do you do nowadays to fly for fun? You have to enjoy it still. What's your passion? What's your passion flying nowadays?
I have to say aviation is my passion, no matter how I do it. And but the things that I've enjoyed the most recently have been the helicopter rating that you mentioned. Bobby, that was really an amazing experience to go back through and start with a whole different category of aircraft again. And to go back, and I think it was insightful for me for my work in King Schools too, because it was really going back to being a beginner and developing that beginner's mind, kind of throwing out everything that you think that you know about flying, and approach it from a beginner. And that for me was just thrilling to go back and do. And that first solo, all the memories came back of my first airplane solo. And when I lifted that helicopter, picked it up off the ground and started, going around the pattern, I was thinking to myself, this is the coolest thing ever. And if I had tried this just a few weeks before, it would have been a suicide mission. There's no way I would have survived it.
Right.
And here I am, flying this helicopter solo or around the pattern, all the responsibility on me. And that gives you a sense of competency and a sense that, the training that we do out there is valuable, and really the instructors make a tremendous difference. And the instructor that I had was an amazing instructor. But the dedication required by people learning to fly in order to go through what we have to go through, the examinations we have to do. It takes a passion, and I still have that passion. That was wonderful to go through. And flying a helicopter was it's different than an airplane. It has no stability. You're flying it all the time, but over time it becomes natural, and that lack of stability then becomes something that's completely enjoyable because it allows you to do things with the helicopter that you could never do with an airplane. Around flying slow, around just the sense of being connected to the aircraft, and looking to your left and saying, "Oh, I wonder what that is over there. That'd be interesting." And the helicopter just snaps it, goes over there, and you don't feel like you're doing anything. So that was fun. Other things I love. I have a group. My wife and I both are members of a group of 16 pilots that own 3 Great Lakes biplanes, and we do tours through that organization along the San Diego coast, coastal tours, aerobatic tours, formation flying, air combat, and that is a real kick because most of our partners are ex-military guys. I didn't come from that route, but they have a lot to teach and enjoy teaching it, and I've enjoyed learning. And another area where get to go back to the beginner's mind again and learn how to fly formation, learn how to do some of these things that and air combat techniques from World War I. These guys are history buffs, and they know a lot of that stuff. So I've had a lot of fun doing that. Still enjoy flying the Falcon with John and Martha. Is incredibly rewarding. Also flying it with my wife now these days. She's type rated in it as well, and so that's a lot of fun to fly together and enjoy that. So I don't know. I just enjoy everything, Bobby. It's aviation for me. It's just it's in my blood.
There's been many spottings of John and Martha in the Falcon in Conroe, an airport probably 10 minutes from Wally's house and about 15 or 30 minutes from our airport. If y'all ever come back through Houston and make a fuel stop at Conroe, please let me and Wally know. We'd love to come say hi and chit chat a little bit.
Well, it has been a common fuel stop for us in the past, so you never know. We'll definitely let you know.
Good restaurant there if y'all need to eat too. We'll break some bread together for sure. Very great conversation.
Yeah.
Great show. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to many, many years of King Schools putting out great materials for student pilots and those pilots that are already rated to make us all better pilots. We appreciate your passion, everything that John and Martha does. Keep up the good work and stay behind the prop.
Well, truly a pleasure to join on the show and talk about aviation. Doesn't take a whole lot to get me to start talking about aviation, so I enjoyed the time today. Thank you both for inviting me.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at behindtheprop.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhearn. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.